pleasant day to you all, my friends. I'm Eli Martyr. Thank you so much for joining me here on the FreeMelon Society. Today we're going to be going through a little bit of a reading session. I want to read to you a section from a book called The Initiation, The Perfecting of Man. It's by a lady named Annie Besant. Now, I know that just in saying that name, because there are lots of documentaries out there that deal with the occult world, that deal with mysticism, that deal with theosophy, and paint Annie Besant and Helena Blavatsky and a lot of these occultists, and they paint them in a very like evil and dark way. And I know, I get it, right? Because the institutions that those people were involved in were shady and less than reputable. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're familiar, now you might not be familiar with that aspect of this story, but if you are, I just want you to know that I'm not a stranger to that information. Okay, I'm well aware of it. But then there's something that happens when you actually read what they say directly from their mouths, word for word. It sometimes comes down to what I often talk about as having a level of discernment, okay, or maintaining a degree of discernment when we're reading texts and making judgments on people. If corrupt, evil people, George Bush, Henry Kissinger, Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice, Vlad the Impaler, okay, whatever. If any of these people come to you and they say, you know, if you plant this seed in the ground, a tree will grow. Or they tell you, no, the sky is blue today. I mean, those are true statements. They can tell the truth, even if the person is not a reputable person, right? It just might be that they have something truthful to say. So what I'm trying to say is, in reading this particular book, you'll find that there is wisdom in here that is not evil, right? It is just knowledge. And again, how knowledge is applied is what makes it evil or good. But in here is kind of just a recounting of some natural truths, extant facts of nature, and of the evolutionary process of consciousness. And so I wanted to read from you a section dealing with initiation, the process of initiation, and the stumbling blocks that will hold one back from attainment in terms of the higher life, the conscious evolved life. Okay, so this is Initiation, The Perfecting of Man by Annie Besant. And so there's a tiny little section in here that describes what initiation actually is. Because I say that every once in a while, don't I? And maybe we might not be familiar with what I mean when I say the initiation process, right? Or I've said FreeMelon initiate from time to time. Maybe it's time to describe what we mean by that. Okay, now, what does this initiation in the mysteries mean? Quite frankly, it means an expansion of consciousness. Initiation itself is a certain series of events through which the man passes, actual events and experiences taking a certain amount of time, not a vague, indefinite series of feelings, but actual communications and thoughts and actions gone through by man out of the physical body in the presence of a great assembly of the masters. The result is that the man becomes conscious of a new world, as though some great new sense had been given to him, which opened to him a new world surrounding him. As a man born blind might know the world by hearing, taste, touch, but if his eyes were opened, would see a new world he had not dreamt of, stretching around him on every side. So is it with the man who, having passed through the great ceremony of initiation, comes back into his body, into the mortal world of men. Another world is around him. A new phase of consciousness belongs to him. He sees where before he was blind. He knows where before he only hoped or guessed. So that is a great description of what the initiation process is into the mysteries. Okay, the mysteries being the laws of nature that are not as forthcoming, but equally as existent as the ones that are forthcoming. Initiation is the path that leads you to a harmonization and a recognition of more of the laws of nature than the average person recognizes and harmonizes with in their life, thus allowing for higher attainment in conscious evolution for the initiate. So that's initiation. Now, the second little part here, it's about halfway or maybe even 3/4 through the book. And it deals with the stumbling blocks, okay? The stumbling blocks that get in the way of initiation or from attaining of a good life. And she breaks it down into kind of two portals or two major stepping stones. So it's these two portals that the initiate has to get through or overcome, all right? The first portal, it has to do with a type of inner renunciation or a detachment, okay? A detachment from things, from the external world. Not the type of detachment that necessitates you locking yourself up in a mountain, at the top of the Himalayas, restricted only to the inverted lotus position for 70 years before, that's not what it means. But it means an inner feeling, an inner energetic chemistry of separateness, right? Living in the world, but just not being so attached, right, that they have an effect on you. So I'll just briefly read here. Then it is that inner renunciation is made, which you find typified in the three great vows that in the Roman Catholic Church and in parts of the Anglican are the vows which give admission to that which they call the supernatural life. You know the vows of poverty, of chastity, of obedience. They symbolize a great spiritual truth. The inner renunciation by the new initiate of the whole of the possessions, physical, mental, which hitherto he may have regarded as his own. Not by spoken words, but by inner renunciation, he gives up all sense of property, all sense of ownership in anything, which he is supposed to possess. He may have wealth. It is no longer his. It belongs to the great lodge into which he is entering. He may have mental ability. It is no longer his. He must use it for the service of that to which he has now given himself. And so from his heart departs all sense of ownership, all sense of property. And by a strange paradox, it is in that moment of utter renunciation that the kings of the earth, the wise men, bring their treasures and pour them at the feet of the helpless babe. For where a man wants nothing, everything falls into his hands. And hands that are emptied in the service of the world are ever continually filled, although they never retain. Now I want to add something here because this is where people go wrong, all right? People will read that passage and what they will hear is communism. What they will hear is socialism, right? The evil, tyrannical type of globalist movement of socializing the world, of communizing the world, and ripping the property away from everybody, taking away people's freedom of choice, taking away people's livelihood, right, to be completely controlled by the state. That is not what is being suggested here. I know that the actual words that you heard me say were, okay, let's see here. He may have wealth. It is no longer his. All right. You might read that and not understand the spirit that it's coming from. Okay. The intention behind that. It is not meant to suggest that if you have a home, if you have a degree of wealth, if you have a family, if you have whatever, it doesn't mean that you must literally abandon all of it. Right. That's not what it means. It is an inner renunciation. Okay? It is an inner detachment. It means that towards those things, you cultivate an inner condition of detachment. And so long as the inner life, the conscious inner life, that is what matters. Okay? That is what truly matters. If you are truly detached and yet you still have your possessions with you, but you have no attachment to them, right? That is the quality that brings about the conscious evolution, okay? It does not necessitate that you give them all up. Now, that doesn't mean to say, though, that let's say you actually did give everything up. Well, now you set up conditions that make it very easy to cultivate this path because now the things aren't even there as an option. So it's a way, so you could use that as a way to but as a way to really expedite that process, which is why, you hear about the monks, renouncing everything and heading off to the mountain, like I was talking about earlier. and using that as a way to kickstart the life of attainment. But what is important to know here is, again, we're talking about discernment, okay? She's not suggesting that that is the only way. What is important, and there's other parts of the book that talk about this, is that the thing that really matters is the inner quality, all right? The inner quality and motivation behind the words, right? Behind the actions. Look, let's say I run into a friend of mine that I haven't seen in 20 years or something. Yo, Martyr, oh my God, I haven't seen you in forever. And I embrace him. I'm like, oh my God, holy smokes, I haven't seen you in forever. Oh, you bastard, where have you been? Right? Okay, my use of the word bastard in that sense. Okay, what is the inner quality that powered the word bastard? Is that person going to say, bastard, what are you talking about? And get upset because I use the word bastard? No, only a blithering idiot would do that. Only someone who has been so blunted to the particulars of socializing would not be able to pick up that the use of the word bastard is fueled by a very loving energy that has nothing to do with any antipathy or hostility or contempt towards that person, right? You see what I'm saying? So it is the inner quality that counts when the author is talking about renunciation of the world around you, okay? That's very important to understand because people can get mixed up with this kind of stuff if they don't have a good level of discernment, right? So that being said, that separation, okay, that inner detachment, that's the first quality. That takes you through the first portal. The second portal is what we're going to get into now. All right, reading on. And 3 weaknesses he must get rid of now before the second portal may be approached. Get rid of them entirely. Completely, utterly, for he can never again tread this path. Ever onward lies his way. They are called 3 fetters because they hold him back until they are broken. First is the sense of separateness. He must see all around him as part of himself. He must feel with their joys and with their sorrows, look at things from their standpoint, understand their feelings, and be able to sympathize with them, judge none, criticize none. They are all himself, part of his own life. The sense of separateness must utterly pass away, for a savior of the world must feel identity of nature with all. Hence, no feeling against any as lower than himself, no judgment of any as despicable or contemptible. He sees all as fragments of the one life, and identifies himself with each in order to help and save. Okay, readers aside, that quality of empathy to everything and harmony and community with all, that's a very important quality. And again, we're gonna exercise our discernment here. What's not being said or what's being omitted here and is in fact part of different teaching is even when you see evil around you, what this does not mean is it doesn't mean that you simply allow evil to run rampant, right? What it does mean is that you recognize the quality of it and act in service for the betterment of all to correct the evil, okay? Not stand idly in the face of evil. You're walking with a family, someone jumps out with a knife and says, I'm going to kill your family. What do you say? Do you go, I am one with you, so please slaughter my family? Because, no, that would be the very unevolved spiritual thing to do. That would be the response of someone who has been duped by the New Age philosophy, all right? Where you simply excuse evil around you because we are all one, right? And you simply excuse it and do nothing. No, that's not what is being said here, okay? It's an inner recognition of the oneness of all, but in that recognition, it also means not abdicating your responsibility to goodness by defending truth and standing for morality and championing against evil and iniquity. Okay? So here's the next fetter that ties us back. He must get rid of all sense of doubt, not that rightful attitude of the mind to be doubtful of that which is doubtful, because at present unproved, that remains ever necessary. Else were there danger of credulity and folly. But doubt as to certain great facts in nature. The fact of reincarnation he cannot doubt, for now he knows his past. The fact of karma, the great law of action and reaction, he cannot doubt. He can look back and see its working in the past and trace it in the present. The fact of the existence of the masters he cannot doubt. He has stood in that wondrous circle when he was initiated. The fact of the path he cannot doubt. he is treading it. Those make up the doubt that forever is left behind, the fetter which might prevent his progress. All those things that she referred to were fleshed out kind of earlier in the book, the things that we must take for granted, where we're not going to get into that today. But okay, moving on to the third great fetter that ties back progress. The third great fetter is superstition, the belief that a particular rite or ceremony is necessary for the attainment of the result that by it is sought. He no longer needs the bridge which a ceremony is intended to be to those who cannot yet reach the higher worlds by their own power, by their own knowledge. He realizes that the ceremonies of all the religions are equally useful for the adherents of each, but that none are necessary for him. He knows he can no longer depend upon any ceremony. He depends only on the God within. Useful, beautiful, helpful as they may be to those who have not passed through the portal, their value is over for him. For he sees unveiled the realities of the worlds which they can only symbolize, and to which they bridge the way. When those three fetters are utterly cast aside, when they no longer have power to hold him back, then he has grown to young manhood, when he is ready to pass the second of the great initiations. In the Christian drama, it is called the baptism. It is written that the Spirit of God came down upon Jesus and abode with him. That is the Christian form. The Spirit comes down, the spirit of intuition, and before he can go further to the third initiation, he must learn to bring it down through his enlarged causal and mental bodies to his physical consciousness, so that it may abide on him and guide him. Hence, the Hindu calls him the builder of vehicles that he requires. The Buddhist, he who shall receive birth once more, looking onwards to the goal towards which the aspirant is pressing. Yeah, so, I mean, if you're paying attention, these are very powerful instructions. They really resonate deeply in the soul and in the mind if you allow them to. So superstition was the third fetter to be overcome, and now backtracking in the book, there's another section on superstition and how it relates to animal sacrifice and the tradition of humans using animals for food and whatnot. And because this is a health-oriented channel, this is going to be a good section to get into too, as well. So, reading on. The last, I said, was superstition. The master speaks of two forms specially. One which still prevails, though much more limited than before, in the shape of animal sacrifice, offered in some of the Indian temples, mostly among the very poor and uneducated in the villages more than in the towns. But there are a few temples still left, I am ashamed to say, where educated and thoughtful people offer up the blood of animals to the divine forms they worship. And the master speaks of that, and you will all join him in the condemnation. But your missionaries will never persuade the Indians who still use animal sacrifice, a minority as they are, that animal sacrifice is evil. That animal sacrifice is evil. As long as far more animals are sacrificed to the human palate than are ever sacrificed in the temples. That also is marked as superstition by the master. The cruel superstition, he says, that man needs flesh for food. And it is a superstition, as those know who have resolutely faced it, and have learned that health and not disease is the result of following the law of love. I'm going to say that one more time. And it is a superstition, as those who have resolutely faced it, and have learned that health and not disease is the result of following the law of love. If you think of that sometimes as superstition, it may help you put it aside. Following the law of love, right? Following the law of love, So let those words sit with you and resonate with you, and there's definitely some power there. There's another part of the book where she talks about quickly just about eating animals. Another demand which is made, still more annoying in the minds of many, and I grant it is troublesome to those who are very much in contact with their fellows, is the dropping of all forms of flesh food. That does not poison in the same way. Readers aside, she was talking about alcohol beforehand. So, that does not poison in the same way, but it tends slightly to coarsen the body. but it tends slightly to coarsen the body. And the aim of the student of yoga is to have a body which will be very strong and very resistant, while at the same time it is very sensitive and very responsive to vibrations from the subtler worlds of matter and of life. You have to deal here with your nervous system and your brain. You have to build those up, and the building depends upon the kind of food that you take, and putting aside all questions of compassion, though they cannot be put aside by those who would seek the masters of compassion, and taking only physical results, apart from any question as to animal suffering and pain, you find that unless your nerves, your brains are prepared, that the vibrations of subtle matter beating upon them, and you are inviting that beating, remember, will tend to disorganize both, and to render you liable to nervous disorder and to various forms of hysteria. That's it for now, guys. I don't want to get too much into that. But yeah, I thought that was really important for you guys to hear. And I've been meaning to read you excerpts from this book for a long time. This book has been sitting here forever. I read it a long time ago. And it's great, and I don't know why I waited so long. Kind of just sitting here in the great library of Martyrs Andrea that you see behind me. But anyway, fantastic little book if you're interested in the type of mental reform that really starts to change your character from the inside. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here in the secret classroom, where you're getting information that you're honestly not going to find on any other vegan, plant-based, health-oriented channel. And so so I'm happy that I'm able to give you some of these things that you might not get had I not approached them. So anyway, happy health, happy wellness. Subscribe to the FreeMelon Society if you like videos like this and enjoy my content and you want to hear more. Then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything. Give this video a thumbs up. And you be well. Have a great day. Enjoy. I love you very much. I love you very much. Mwah. We'll see you guys next time here on the FreeMelon Society. Okay? Take care. Thank you, guys.